following summary is from a November 22nd article related to Black, Hispanic, and white policing. The Bureau of Justice Statistics states that Black citizens were more prone to being stopped by police than white or Hispanic citizens. Black and Hispanic citizens were more likely to have multiple contacts with police than white citizens. When having an interaction which protects all citizens under the Constitution, the Black and Hispanic citizens were more than doubled of being threatened with an excessive use of force or simply getting force used upon them than white citizens. Black Americans made up 27% of all individuals arrested in 2016. This was the last known year this data was recorded. This was about twice their proportion of the total population. Black American youth made up 35% of all juvenile arrests, despite only making up 15% of the total youth population in America. Police use of force data is limited as most precincts don't explicitly collect data on use of force, but existing data suggests that African Americans are subject to both non-lethal and lethal use of force at disproportionate rates. A 2013 study found that officers with higher dehumanization skills were more likely to use force to Black children than white children. In 2017, it was found that Black Americans were 21.2% more likely to experience force than white Americans. That is crazy.
How would you define racial indifferences?
I would describe racial indifference as someone with skin of color is getting affected while the other person that's not the skin of color has to, watch because they just don't want to get involved in that.
How do you feel about racial indifferences that different racial groups face with police?
I think it's very unfair because, the person of color has to deal with the consequences and, the bystander, which just watches, the whatever that's happening, they just watch and they're just like, okay, well, I'm not that skin color, so I'm not associated with that.
Do you believe this perspective on police leads to lower levels of trustworthiness for them?
Yes, because people, tend to get scared of getting racially profiled. And it's very unfair because it's like, they're scared. They don't know what to expect at the end if they're getting pulled over.
Hello everyone, this is Jamie Bermeo, and today I'm going to be speaking about an article released by 3 college graduates titled Stereotype, Threat, and Racial Differences in Citizen Experiences of Police Encounters. This article has 2 studies. I'm mainly going to be explaining the second one, which puts participants on a hypothetical police encounter where they will be walking home at night and the police officer is obviously looking at them, checking to see if they can find any suspicious activity related to them. Results show that Black men are more susceptible than any other to feel negatively judged and more anxious because of stereotypical beliefs and stereotypes in our society. These results further evidence that Black men experience stereotype threat in police encounters. It even demonstrated that the racial difference in stereotype threat appears even when all participants envision the same kind of police encounters in terms of how likely it would have been for the police officers to confront them or target them as suspects. In conclusion, this article tackles a very important issue in our society right now, which is racism and stereotype beliefs, that it can affect even our police and even our criminal justice system.
How would you define racial indifferences?
Racial indifferences to me is someone ignoring something happening because of their race, and they don't include themselves because they are not of that race.
How do you feel about racial indifferences that different racial groups face with police?
I think it is inappropriate and I don't agree with it because it leads to people being in situations that they don't deserve to be in because of their race, and we just ignore it.
Do you believe this perspective on police leads to lower levels of trustworthiness for them?
Yes, because they aren't focused or working for the safety of our community as a whole, but only for the ones that they agree with on a race basis.
What is your opinion on the often seen racial violence occurring between cops and different racial groups?
So I think a lot of the movements that are happening these days are actually happening for a very good reason. I'm sure different instances like this were happening before. But the difference before is we didn't have this boom in technology, having Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives and being able to record different things that are happening at the time. I think we're starting to see just the more accurate depiction of what's going on in live feed, than when we were able before. Different movements, I think, are actually like really helpful with this. And I think policies are just really hard to change. There's a lot of different kind of policies that officials and policemen and policewomen have to go through as part of their training. And it's not always as updated as other professionals that get continuing education. I definitely feel like that's something that needs to change and hasn't actually changed as of yet.
Why do you think it's often like these events are often seen where cops are like stereotyped to like single out these minority groups? Like it's often seen like media or random videos of them specifically like being harsher towards these minorities.
I think racial profiling is a problem that we just have like in our society. Unfortunately, I think there is this stereotype that certain neighborhoods, a certain profile, a certain look is seen to be more dangerous than others. Moreover, on top of that, as I said before, with the boom in technology, where we do have phones and video cameras and the ability to live record on different social media streams, I think we're seeing more now because we have the capability to see more now. I think there's a lot of times before that the police were not always the ones being monitored, who are, the people who typically monitor others are not those in authority. Now, common people are able to record things and post them for the whole world to see. We didn't have that ability before.
Yeah, I definitely think that's like a big part of everything, where it's like now everyone can share anything with like a click of a button, as opposed to before where they couldn't. I have one last question from one of my group members. I asked him if he wanted to ask you any questions. He said that, do you think police are like specifically trained to target different racial groups, or do you think it's just purely the cops' like personal agenda?
I think that's a really hard question to answer because I don't think you can actually stereotype like all cops have this. I think people have different motivations to go into the different jobs that they go into. Obviously, people who become police officers hopefully do so with a reason. Some of them want to make the world a safer place. Some of them might have had experiences before in the past where they were wronged in some sort of way. Sometimes people who have been wronged in a certain kind of way by a particular race might have, a hidden agenda. Sometimes that person might be aware of it, and sometimes they're not. Do I feel that they're trained to racially profile? No, I don't think the police are trained to look out for certain minority groups. I think that problem is more of a problem that we have as a society as a whole, rather than specific, police training towards their during their academy times. Well, I think the problem actually is I don't think they actually have enough training of what to do in certain situations. So a lot of things that we're seeing, these mistakes, these were mistakes that were preventable mistakes. Going into a wrong person's home, a routine traffic stop, and going into a glove compartment or something like that to get license and registration and mistaking that for a gun. I think there's different things that they could actually add to their protocol, to make it be a safer measure in general. I think that's one of the things that we're missing.